What's going on, guys? I am here tonight because I made Asma a promise when she sent me a message on Facebook that I would make her a video about an issue she messaged me about. So anyway, let's get to it. She sent me this message. Hi, Pete. First, I'd like to thank you for the amazing job you're doing teaching us the Aussie accent. Thank you, Asma. Then, can you please tell me how I can change the accent that has been fixed in my mind? When I listen to your episode, I practice the accent, but in my other conversations with my colleagues at work, even less than 1% of my mind actually thinks about the accent. My time always thinks about the grammar and the words that I need to say. Another issue is that when I speak English, my concentration on speaking English reduces my attention to the subject, and this makes my speaking unnatural. I hate when people think I am not contributing to their conversation. I cannot catch up with the speed of their conversation when I am thinking of the words they used in my mind at the same time. Could you please make a video about this? All right, so there's a lot in there, but I'll try and give you my advice on this. It's definitely not easy. So I think the first one or two things you were talking there about was trying to improve your accent. So you're doing that with the episodes that I create, which is really good. On top of that, I would obviously suggest getting my pronunciation course and working through that. But in terms of working on your accent, I would not try and work on your accent when you're having conversations with people. Obviously try and focus on your pronunciation so that you're saying things correctly. And if you're uncertain about something, maybe think for a moment. But that's not the time to be practicing your pronunciation, especially at work when you're speaking with colleagues and the message is very important, right? Obviously, you need to communicate, you need to get work done. It's not about taking it easy and relaxing and practicing your English at work. So my main advice there would be obviously keep working on it as much as you can. Every single day, guys, every single day, do something to work on your pronunciation, even if it's just taking a step back, and analyzing your accent, thinking about what sounds do I find difficult? Can I get a word list or something to work on these sounds? Can I find some minimal pairs to try and nail getting these two similar sounds and pronouncing them correctly? So I would take that time aside at home and practice in my spare time, right? So like if you're a tennis star, you love playing tennis, you're not going to practice when you're playing a game, right? When you're actually at a competition, you're not going to be like, okay, well now I better practice my serve or my backhand or forehand. That's not the time to do that. The time to do that, usually through drilling and obviously getting someone else like a coach or a tutor or someone, that speaks the language as their native language, get them to analyze your English and give you advice on what you need to work on, and then drill that at home or in your own time or in spare time or when you're having conversations with people and it is, a casual environment. It's not a work-related environment. So hopefully there's some advice in there. Don't worry too much about it at work. The biggest thing for you at work is to communicate. If people are understanding you, then you don't need to worry about your accent. If people don't understand you, especially in a work condition or environment, they're going to make it known to you, right? They're going to say, sorry, what do you mean? Or, sorry, can you say that again? Or could you explain that differently? So if they get confused and the information's important and you mispronounce something, don't stress, because they'll just ask you a question or try and get you to say something else differently to be able to understand you. Or quite often context is going to help you be understood by these people, right? All the other words that you say in the sentences. If you mispronounce one word, usually we can work out what you meant, right? It's not the end of the world. But keep practicing it at home when you can and when you have time. Now, what else did you say here? So my time's always thinking about grammar and the words that I need to say. If you're trying to work on your grammar and on your vocabulary, again, obviously it's important in the conversation to try and get this right, but don't beat yourself with a whip, right? If you use the wrong grammar tense, if you use the incorrect vocab for a certain, whatever it is, technical term or something at work, it's not going to be the end of the world. People will ask for clarification if they're confused. Otherwise, there's no problem, right? The main goal is to be understood, for you to communicate. You don't have to be perfect. You're not a native speaker. People don't expect that of you. All they want from you is to be able to understand you so that they can get that information from you, go and do their job, and the same for you. You just want to get the information across. You don't need to be perfect. But I would do that again. If you notice or if you look at grammar and there's things that you're getting wrong, or maybe you're unsure about certain things, get a tutor, get a friend, get someone to give you feedback, someone to correct your writing, use italki, find somewhere online, and then practice that in your own time. Read a lot. Reading a lot will help you improve your grammar. Definitely it's going to help you improve your vocab the more you do that, right? And it's a good passive, relaxing exercise that you can do in your own time. And the good thing is you can read about anything, right? And you're learning English. So you can get on Wikipedia and you can search for any topic in the world, right? Almost any topic in the world is going to be on Wikipedia. You can find out information about it so you can learn about topics you're already interested in whilst also improving your English, whilst improving your grammar, whilst improving your vocabulary. It's all about input, comprehensible input, right? Input you understand, or that you can at least discern the meaning from. And you can look up the words you don't understand, or maybe you see grammar that you're like, oh, I never use it. I never say things that way. That's a really good tense. So it was used in this example. I'll take that away, I'll practice that, and then I'll try using that when I'm at work next time, right? So reading is a great way of improving any language, whilst also, two birds, one stone, learning about other topics, right? So for instance, at the moment, I have got a whole bunch of books coming from Brazil in Portuguese that are about Brazilian history, because I wanted to learn a lot about Brazilian history because my wife's from Brazil and, I just want to be in the know. I want to have some kind of basic knowledge of Brazilian history, but I didn't want to do this in English because I was like, that's not going to help me in terms of improving my language abilities, right? My language ability. Maybe I'll learn the odd word here and there in English, but to be honest, the time is going to be much better spent doing it in Portuguese, in which these books were written in the first place, so I'll just read them in Portuguese and kill two birds with one stone. All right. Another issue is that when I speak English, my concentration on my speaking reduces my attention to the subject, and this makes my speaking unnatural. So in terms of, I think here you're trying to sort of ask about fluency and how can you become better at fluency and not focus on, say, sentence construction, what you're trying to say. So I recently did an interview with a gentleman named Lucas, who has a book which I have lent to a student, and I believe it was called Effortless Conversations. His basic premise in that book is that students should focus on learning chunks. So collocations, expressions, but beyond just collocations, the common series of words that are said together, you'll get the ones like lukewarm or red hot or ice cold, those are kind of like the common stuff. But chunking is kind of good, where you try and pay attention when reading or in conversations to phrases that people use quite a lot, or the kinds of patterns that they use where they put these collocations and expressions together, and then you learn those. And the more you do this at home using, say, a flashcard program like Anki, or literally using flashcards, or maybe just reading through a list of them every day, the more you do this, the more your fluency is going to improve as you practice these chunks. I made a few videos recently on fluency islands. That's another really good way of trying to improve your fluency, your spoken fluency. It's basically trying to work out the conversations or the topics that you have conversations about most commonly, right? So we all tend to have the same kind of conversations all the time with people, whether it's at work and it's related to the same topics, whether it's in our social lives, we talk about family, we talk about our hobbies, we talk about what we did on the weekend, we talk about what TV shows we like, all of that sort of stuff. The basic idea with Fluency Islands is developing this, but taking a more kind of analytical approach to this as opposed to winging it. So what do I mean by that? This is where you kind of set out to come up with a list of topics that make up, say, 80% of what you talk about all the time with anyone. And then you kind of come up with different phrases that you would use, or that you would like to use, or that you're trying to learn to be able to talk about those topics. And this is where you can put in chunks as well, right? Really good collocations or expressions that help you talk about these topics that you're going to use all the time. Practicing these things that you're going to be using all the time, whether it is the small islands, which is like the chunks themselves, the sentences, the phrases, or the big islands in terms of learning the conversation material, the topics, right? Exploring that topic and being able to talk about it well. This needs to be practiced at home as well. And then when you have conversations, you won't have to think about it because you've gone away, you've practiced sentences that you want to say, and they've just been committed to memory, and you'll just spit them out. My example that I used in that was "Ce qui me le plus intéressé de And then something in French means that which interests me the most about something is. And I remember practicing that phrase. And the good thing about these islands, or these micro islands, right? The small phrases, chunks, collocations, you can start using these to talk about many different things after you've learned them, right? As soon as you learn a phrase like, what I'm thinking of doing is, you can sort of put that phrase in your mind. What I'm thinking of doing is, and anytime you're thinking of doing something and you're trying to tell someone that, it doesn't matter what that topic is, you can just spit that sentence out. Oh, what I'm thinking of doing is, and then add the rest of the material on. Going to the shops, studying French, having a coffee, chatting to friends, going camping, so you learn those chunks. And when you have conversations like this, it's more that you jump from chunk to chunk, right? Or from island to island. You don't have to think about individual words or grammar. You've practiced it all at home, and it makes fluency, it just improves fluency a great deal. So it makes having conversations much more easy and natural. You don't have to think about it. So the biggest thing here, the takeaway message from this video is you need to be practicing a lot of this stuff at home, preparing in your own time, so that when you have to perform, you're not in here and you're just performing, right? It's kind of like reaching flow state. I'll have to talk about that in another video, but you would imagine that people who go and play, say, tennis matches, when they get up there, every time a ball comes at them, they just have a reaction, right? The ball's here, I need to give a backhand. The ball's here, I need to give a forehand. I'm at the net, I need to give a volley. They're not thinking, oh crap, I've got to do a forehand in this position, which means I straighten my arm out and then I twist my wrist and then I use my body to, they're not breaking it down like that, because they've done all the work beforehand and they've practiced all of the individual movements and then going from movement to movement, the fluency of the whole act, right? So that's the basic message for today's video. That's the advice I would follow. Go home each day, actively practice your accent, work on grammar, work on your vocabulary, a lot of which you can do by reading. Obviously, with your accent, you need to be talking to someone and getting feedback, or watching videos, or using my course, the Australian Pronunciation course. Guys, use the link below to get it. It'll help you. It's helped hundreds of students. And then in terms of fluency, you need to be working on those chunks, collocations. Just check out my Fluency Island video. I think that'll really help. But you can get a notepad, you can write down these ideas, and you can try and flesh it out and then study it every day. And I promise you, within a month or so, this won't be a problem and you'll be speaking much more fluently and hopefully having a better time at work. Anyway, asthma, I hope that helps. I hope it helps everyone else watching, and I'll chat to you guys soon. Peace.